Welcome to episode 13 of The Racer's Edge in association with F1 Racing Magazine. Delighted to have in the studio with us this week the winner of the Spa 3.5 World Series by Renault race. Well, he won one of the races, finished third in the other. He's had 4 poles at Spa in that series in the last 2 years. I speak, of course, of Kevin Magnussen, who is also a third driver for Vodafone McLaren Mercedes. Kevin, thanks for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you.
You've sprayed the champagne already, so excuse us not having any, but you love that place,
yes.
I guess.
Yeah.
Spa-Francorchamps. Why?
It is a good place.
Tell us about it. Tell us about your relationship with Spa.
I've been there many times since the 2-liter days, Formula Renault 2 liters, and it's just such a good place. Really fast circuit, and I think fast circuits suit me quite well. I'm always comfortable in the fast corners, so I think I just enjoy it there.
Well, later on in the show, I'm going to ask you to nominate your 5 favourite corners, so we'll have a think about that. I assume they're all going to be quick corners based on what you just said. But just to try and, let's put this season into perspective a little bit. It's a big year for you. You're driving with Dams, great team. You're doing well, you're leading the championship. But it looks like everything else these days, a really difficult series in which to be truly consistent. Monaco, you were there or thereabouts, but it was a difficult weekend for you.
Yeah, it was. I think for Monaco, the thing with World Series is if you crash, even in qualifying, if you bring out yellow flags or red flags, they delete your lap time. So even in qualifying, you cannot take too much risk. And in Monaco, that's not the easiest place. So I was not really on it that weekend, and we just misjudged everything a little bit. The track evolves a lot, changes a lot through the weekend, and you have to sort of guess how much it will change and what direction it will change in, and then change the setup for that. And we got it wrong, I think. And so I think actually finishing fourth was quite. I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it was a good result, a good point scoring result. Of course, Monaco, one of the races, well, probably the only race where you're on the same weekend race card as Formula One.
The only one.
And with your McLaren links, I guess there was that slight, wow, I'd like to do well here, and maybe it manifested itself in leaving a bit of margin, as you just said.
Yeah, I think I was just more thinking about championship, really. This year I'm thinking a lot about championship, trying to be consistent, to score maximum points every race, and try not to make any big mistakes, because this year it's going to be really close. There's a lot of quick drivers. We've seen, I think, 5 different people on pole. So yeah, many good drivers, and it's going to be about finishing every race in the points. Including
your fellow young McLaren driver, Stoffel Vandoorne, who we've spoken with on this show. He's done incredibly well there. You shouldn't be talking too much about your opposition,
no, I
but
agree,
were you surprised at his pace at Monza in that first race?
I wouldn't say, no, I wasn't surprised in Monza. Maybe a little bit earlier on in winter testing, I was quite surprised that he was able to be so quick that early, but it seems like it's just a really perfect match again. Like you can compare it a lot to Robin Freins last year. It seems like they just really suit the car. These 2 guys coming from Kaufman. Maybe, I don't know if there's anything in that, but yeah, I was quite surprised. But he's obviously doing a really fantastic job, and big congratulations to him.
But you've had some amazing races already, and it's so competitive, that series. The standard of driving, incredibly high. And I compare it with GP2 now, not detracting from some of the guys doing well in GP2, but World Series, the depth of talent is amazing. You see Carlos Huertas, who sometimes isn't there, but suddenly, as you say, it all comes right in the wet, and a great drive from him as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I think World Series is as I said, really competitive, and yeah, again, it's that's why you need to be so consistent this year.
Well, that Spa race that you won, the first race, looked like a perfect race for you. The pole, the win, everything went as it should.
Yeah, I mean, we were actually struggling quite a lot last weekend. We seemed to be missing quite a lot of time in sector 1 and 3, which is basically only a straight line. But we were strong enough in sector 2 to make up for that. But in the race, sector 2 is obviously all the corners, pretty much, and that's where so my tires were struggling quite a lot in the races. But we managed to come away with quite a lot of points, so not bad.
Well, very good result for you. Kevin, we've got a lot of questions. Thanks to everybody who's sent in questions from the F1 Racing Global fan community. Lots, over 100 in just over 24 hours. Actually, not quite as many as Martin Whitmarsh, funnily enough. But
okay.
That's probably a good thing in your position. So if we can start with some of these, and we'll see how we get on. Some of them interesting questions, I think is the way to describe it. And I'm going to see if I can get this right, because the first question is from Bo Skovfoged from Denmark. Okay, this may be a typically Danish question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how tired of you are being called mini-mag, 10 being really, really tired? And he explains here that your dad is sometimes known as Big Mag.
Yeah.
Mag for Magnussen.
My dad is called Big Mag because after his first Formula 1 race, he really needed the Big Mac burger. So that's stuck since then. But yeah, I don't really care, to be honest. I don't notice it too much. I don't think actually people call me Mini Mag so much, so I don't know. I'm not tired of that.
How does your fitness regime now compare with your dad's fitness regime when he was racing?
Times has changed a lot. Everything is.
I know, yeah. But how does it compare?
I think.
What was his workout routine?
I don't know. I was too young to remember.
He's being very diplomatic here, I think.
Yeah.
He smoked, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And he ate Big Macs.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You don't smoke.
I don't smoke.
Because one of the questions I didn't include was that, because I assumed the answer would be no.
I want to say my dad. You know, he did take it very seriously, but maybe in the wrong ways. He wasn't educated well. So that he was really.
You mean
serious.
educated in a racing sense?
Yeah, in you know, he didn't have any people to teach him what's right and wrong in this sport. So he wanted to be in F1 really bad, but just didn't know how to do it.
Well, some more questions about that coming up. Richard Sloop from the USA. And this is another question, I'm not sure what the answer is going to be. Do you remember where you shot a gun for the first time?
Yeah, I do. Jack Harvey.
No, not Jack Harvey
Jack
again.
Harvey, yes.
British Formula 3 driver at the moment, GP3 driver now, isn't he?
Now he's in GP3.
Yeah, British F3 champion from last year.
Yeah, and I was teammates with him in 2011 in Carlo. And yeah, he took me out for a day to clay shoot.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so that's good fun.
Well, how'd you get on?
I was all right. He was better, much better. But yeah, I think I was okay.
Did you hit some?
I did, yeah. The first one I remember, I hit the first one and thought I was brilliant, but then realized it was a bit more difficult. But
if you went at it, I mean, this is a serious question now, because obviously you have good hand-eye coordination. I would imagine brilliant eyesight. Do you feel it's something that you could do very well?
Yeah, I think so. There wasn't anyone else there than me and Jack, so I think Jack is at a pretty high level. And yeah, he was better, but I think with a bit of practice, I could catch up, I think.
Other famous clay pigeon shots of repute: Jackie Stewart, Jim Clark, Nigel Mansell. So there's a little bit of an overlap there with motorsport. Yeah. Probably some others too. Paul Osborne from New Zealand. If you had to choose, which era would you like to have raced in, or race in, I guess, present tense too?
In the 80s, definitely.
The 80s?
Yeah, in the late 80s. That was when it was. That's when it was hard.
Tell me more.
No, I think I would have loved to be in the Senna Prost era to race these guys. That would have been, yeah, such a dream.
So it's more the drivers that comes to your mind than the cars of that type, at that time?
It was everything really. It was just, obviously I wasn't there. I've only seen, I've only heard the stories and seen the films and videos and everything. But it seemed like it was just more about the driver. You could make a bigger difference as a driver. And there were some negative stuff as well. The politics was a little bit worse back then, I think.
And obviously safety wasn't what it is now.
Yeah, but then that has some cool things as well. Obviously, no one's looking to hurt themselves or anything. But I think today some safety things aren't necessary. A lot of the things are really, and a lot of people have done a great job to get the sport to where it is today in terms of safety. But yeah, I think back then it was a little bit more exciting.
And we're speaking here to a guy, a self-confessed lover of fast corners, and I guess that ties in with it a little bit. The commitment, the margin for error is slightly smaller on a fast corner even today, where it's a safe error.
Yeah.
And as Sterling Moss always said, if you're a tightrope walker, you don't want to just fall 1 foot if you make a mistake. That's the whole point of being a tightrope walker. And would you kind of agree with that philosophy?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Refreshing to hear. Klaus Hansen from Denmark. Seem to be lots of questions from Denmark. Don't understand why. Will you team up with your father in Le Mans or another race if you both ever get the chance?
Yes, definitely. That's a big dream, and I'm gonna do that someday. But you know, at the moment, it's not the time right now because I have something else that I'm pursuing. But one day I would love to do Le Mans with my dad.
Good to hear. It's a shame McLaren don't have two-seater Formula One cars. It'd be quite fun to take your dad for a lap or two, and then vice versa, I guess.
He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't go with me.
Well, he wouldn't drive you, or he wouldn't want to be a passenger with you.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't want to be my passenger. That's for sure.
How is your dad, by the way?
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Very good. Enjoying himself.
Does he watch a lot of motorsport on TV still? I say still. Does he watch motorsport on TV?
He races a lot, so I don't think he has time for that.
And what's he racing again?
In American Le Mans.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Scott Simon from the United Kingdom. Well, about your dad. Your father was one of the best young talents I've ever seen, but his career stumbled when he reached Formula One. It's got to reach. What lessons can you learn from his experiences?
I think a lot of things. Obviously, just having him, because he's been through all of that. He's been through the same as what I'm going through now. You know, it's so good to have someone who understands you, who you can speak to, and just you know that he understands you. But again, a lot of things has changed since then. But the mentality of being a racer is still the same. How to win races has changed a little bit, but how to be a fast racing driver, you know, has not changed that much. So there's, you know, it's endless how, you know, the advices he gives, and he tries to teach me everything. But yeah, it's just great to have someone who really understands you.
And how often do you communicate over a race weekend?
Quite a lot. I call him every day in the weekend to tell him how things went, and he will come with his opinion and try to help me out. But he's good as well. He understands that he cannot you know, help me that much. So he'll give me some advices and again understand what I'm saying. But he stays out of my racing quite well. How
many times in a year would he actually see you race?
This year he's been to 2 races, which is already quite a lot. Obviously he's very busy with his own racing in America, and yeah, so there's not a lot of time to come to my races. But yes, for some reason this year he's
good.
Found time.
From Poland, Miss Julia Galniak. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Julia. Who's your favorite driver and why? Your dad.
Yeah, I would have to say my dad, and I mean that 100%. You know, I grew up watching my dad racing, and you know, back then he still is my hero. You know, he really is my idol, and that he is how I see a racing driver. So yeah, he is my favorite driver.
And he was outstandingly good, particularly at Formula 3 level around there. He was just brilliant to watch. Yeah. And it's such a shame that the Formula 1 career didn't happen for him in the way it should have.
Yeah.
Because the potential was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he was, as I say, to watch him was to watch a driver absolutely, totally in sync with the car and doing it as it should be done. From Colombia, Ricardo Cruz. Typical question from a Colombian, politics. At this stage, you're in the World Series by Renault. Are there any politics outside the track that you have to get involved in already at this stage of your career?
No, I wouldn't say so. Really, not that much. I think
It's a nice series, World Series, isn't it?
I think with the no one is there's no paid drivers in the World Series, and there's no big sponsors involved in the teams. So I think it's only really Formula One and other series where drivers get paid and big sponsors are involved with the teams. Then starts the big politics, I think. But honestly, I haven't really seen much of it, even in F1. But you hear a lot of stories and stuff like that. But I think if you really try to stay out of that and just be yourself, you'll be fine, I think.
And you have quite a lot of interaction with the fans in a typical World Series weekend. They promote the drivers well. The whole thing's a really big deal.
Yeah, I think they're doing really well. Tickets are free, so you just download them on the internet and then you can walk in to the track, and I think that's really good. And they do a lot for kids as well, so it sort of attracts families to go. And I think they're doing a great job.
How do you find going to the McLaren Technology Centre? As an adjunct to that, you've had a weekend at Spa like that, and you go to McLaren, completely different atmosphere. Tell us about what it's like going to McLaren and what you've been doing now. For example, today, I think you've just come from the MTC.
Yeah. No, I got used to it now, but obviously McLaren is. But I don't think you ever get 100% used to it. But because it is such an impressive building place, it just shines out of professionalism. It's everything is so perfect and organized, and it just makes you up your game a little bit, quite a lot.
And your status is that of the third driver, shared with two others, right?
Yeah. So it's me, Oliver Turvey, and Gary Parfait.
And lots of questions that I haven't included here, but there are a lot of questions saying, how long do you think it's going to take? Are you thinking of Formula One already? What is your mental approach? I guess you're just taking it one step at a time, focusing on this championship and seeing what will happen in the future in your own mind. You can't plan these things, really, can you?
Not really. Obviously, you have to have a sort of a plan for your career. But I'm at the final step of my career before Formula One, or whatever's gonna happen if I don't get to Formula One. But really, I'm so focused on the World Series. I have a great team of managers and with my dad and McLaren that can take care of my future. Obviously, I have to be a part of it at some point. But at the moment, I'm just really focusing on the World Series and try to do as good a job as I can do there, and then that will help a lot for my future.
Where do you live? Where do you base yourself?
In Woking, next to McLaren.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you share? I mean, what's it like in Woking? Do you live in an apartment?
Yeah, I have a small flat there, so it's good because I spend quite a lot of time in the factory doing training, fitness training, and simulator stuff, and just spending time with the engineers there. So obviously I'm traveling a lot everywhere with the third driver and with the World Series, and I have a home in Denmark as well, and so there's a lot of traveling. But I enjoy it, and it's obviously it's stressful to travel, but it's all very I'm learning from all of it.
And do you know how far in advance do you know when you're going to be the third driver for that weekend?
Not far. They tell you quite late, but or they have done so far. But they make sure that it's not sort of distracting something else that I'm doing. So.
But it'll be a third of the year.
Yeah.
Of the season.
So that's the plan. That me and Gary and Oliver are gonna share a third of the races each.
And do you know what's happening with the test at Silverstone around just after the German Grand Prix?
Not yet, no. I hope I'm doing it. But,
yeah, I bet you do. Well, it's 3 days, right?
There's a 3-day test, yeah. But I'm racing that weekend.
In whereabouts?
Austria.
Right.
Red Bull Ring. So there's no way I'm going to do the Friday at least. So it's going to be either the Wednesday or the Thursday.
Well, you went very well in Abu Dhabi. Things went as well as they could have gone for you in terms of feedback time, what you did in the car, lap time, I would guess.
Yeah, I was very happy with the days I did. The car was fantastic, and the team was so impressive to work with the team, because it's F1 is just a different world in terms of the data you get and the information you can get, and yeah, I loved it.
In how many laps did it take for you to feel at one with the car?
1 lap.
Really?
Yeah, I was really surprised about that, because I was quite nervous coming into the test. You know, how it's going to be, and is it going to be really quick, and a bit, I was not sure if it was going to be a little bit scary, but just got in the car and just felt so natural from the first lap, so I was able to push just right away.
Braking distances, I mean, they say that's one of the big things about Formula One, but you felt that straight away? You could feel on top of that?
Yeah, obviously I got to a very high level very quickly, and then as the days came on, I moved my limits a little bit, but yeah, I was surprised how quickly I got on the pace.
Can you imagine driving one around Spa? What that would be like?
Oh, that would be awesome. Brilliant.
Right, enough daydreaming. Let's get on with the next question. This is from Raymond van den Heuvel. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Raymond. What did your father tell you not to do, if anything? Smoke was the answer.
First of all, and then not have a kid at 19.
But, now we're getting down to it.
Yeah.
And I suppose not smoking was never an effort for you.
No, not really. I tried it, but
did you?
yeah. But I don't.
I did once. I tried to take up. I had a long conversation with Patrick Depailler once, and he was just smoking Gitane constantly. I thought, and Francois Seber actually. This was when I was your age, and I just thought, this is so cool. I've got to try this. So for about a week, I was smoking Gitane. I nearly passed out. I remember I was in Kings Road. I nearly fainted, and then that was it for me.
Yeah, no, I don't understand how people can smoke. It's just.
I know,
yeah,
but they used to a lot. I mean, Kayo Keki Rosberg used to smoke. Another of your Scandinavian countrymen. And your dad, I mean, do you have any idea how many he used to smoke?
He only quit like 2 years ago.
Really?
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a contentious question, but I'll read it as it's been written. Mr. Robin Middleton of the United Kingdom. You were second to Antonio Felix da Costa in the 2009 Formula Renault NEC, but now you're beating him. Well, I'm sure Antonio would have a slightly different slant on that, but you did beat him as well. You're beating him in Formula Renault 3.5. Has your driving improved, or do you think it's just a question of loving the power of the bigger cars? Quite a good question, actually.
Yeah, I think in Formula Renault 2 years, he was a year in front of me. Mm-hmm. He had a year more experience, but he was unbelievable in 2 years, and I had a hard time being faster than him at any time of the season. But I think I have to say that Antonio is the fastest driver I've ever been up against. But this year, I think he's struggling a little bit. He
seems to be, doesn't he? I mean, he's another friend of the show. We've interviewed him a couple of times, but it's amazing how it just shows how competitive this series is. I mean, he's got everything going for him now. Yeah. Having gone through a difficult period of his career, he did a great job last year, and it's just amazing how difficult it is just to get that result.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's won a race, hasn't he?
Yeah, he did.
But well, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, as you say, it's just amazingly high standard of driving, I would imagine. Ben Ford, United Kingdom. What is your biggest fear in your motor racing career or life in general, and what do you do to manage it?
Those are two different questions, really. What I fear most in my career is to lose my career. Because you're always, there's always pressure on you to deliver, because it is so expensive. It's not like you can have a year off and then come back and do well. You have to do well.
And it's not like you're a tennis player or a footballer and you can blame yourself if things don't go well.
Well, there's so many things that make you win, and So in my career, it would be just to lose my career, but in life. There's other, it's about family, and always it's a big fear that losing someone in your family that you care about.
And he's got an adjunct there. What do you do to manage it? Well, that's quite a personal question, really, but I don't know if you want to have a go at that.
Well, I think you have to enjoy what you're doing, and then sometimes live in the moment. You can't always live in the moment, but in the moments, you need to live in the moment and enjoy those.
Jacob Christensen from Denmark. Who is the faster driver, Kevin or Jan Magnussen? I'm sure you've been asked that a million times.
Yeah, and I've never found the answer, really.
Well, actually, and there's and Lewis Burgermeister from Australia says, if you and your dad were both put in identical cars at the primes of your careers, who would be quickest?
Well, the primes of our careers, I don't know. But I know that we were put in the identical cars not long ago.
Oh yeah, what was that?
In Denmark, he's racing this Camaro. It's like a tube frame NASCAR sort of thing. And I came with him to a test day in Sweden. And we were meant to
what
bet in.
What circuit?
It's called Sturup Raceway in the south of Sweden. And we were meant to bet in brakes for the race he was doing next weekend. And yeah, we ended up just trying to set fast lap times. And I was 1/10 quicker than him.
Really?
Yeah. So,
yeah, but who did the timing and everything?
The mechanics.
Not your mate?
No. His mates. So.
And how old was the stopwatch?
Yeah, I don't know. He will probably answer these questions.
Dominika Boja from Poland. Did you want to be a race driver voluntarily, or did your father have to persuade you to take up racing?
Not at all. He's always actually sort of tried to. He's never told me not to race, but he's always, told me about the not so great things about motorsport, and he's made a big deal out of trying to make me understand what I was going into. So no, he's always wanted me to do well. So if I chose to be a racing driver, I had to do it well. I couldn't just muck around. I had to do the job well. So he's what can you say? He's put pressure on me all the time, but not to race, just to do it well if I had to.
And can you remember the first moment when you drove something on four wheels, and was that the defining moment?
No, I was 2 years old when I drove my first go-kart.
Powered go-kart?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I cannot remember that. I've been racing as far as long as I can remember. 2
years old?
Yeah.
My son's 20 months. I can't imagine him driving a go-kart at 2 years.
I have videos where I'm driving this go-kart.
Throttle, brake, left foot braking, everything perfect.
Yeah, just a normal, small go-kart, obviously.
Opposite lock?
I was a little bit. I have these videos, and it is impressive.
It is impressive. It's very impressive. Gary Robinson, United Kingdom. Oh yeah, we've done that one. Which era would you like to race in? You've said the 80s. Akram Castillo Gardenas from Mexico. What kind of racing is preferred in your country? In other words, what do you have in Denmark? What's it like for young guys there?
It's quite good, actually. They obviously Denmark is quite a small country, so the attention is quite big when you are on the close to Formula 1.
Right.
So
big fish in a little pond.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what it is, and it's good and it's bad. It puts some pressure, and it's a little bit annoying that people have opinions on you, but you just have to do the best you can, and then not worry about it. So
what do you have there in terms of national racing? What's the biggest?
We don't have a lot of racing. Is not that big in Denmark, so you can't have a career in Denmark racing. So we don't have very good racetracks, and we have a little bit. We have a Formula 4 championship and a Danish Thundersport championship, I think it's called. So there's
Thundersport
amateur,
being a bit like this Camaro
that's
with
the Camaro thing.
Right.
So there's a little bit of racing, but not.
The Swedes love that as well. All those the sort of NASCAR type stock car thing. It's big in certainly Denmark and Sweden. I don't know about Finland or Norway, but
there was this.
Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know. There was a STCC championship which was really good.
Right.
I don't know if it's still there, but it was really good a few years ago. So it was the same cars as in the WCCC.
I remember, and you'll probably say Sweden's nothing to do with Denmark, but in the minds of some of us, it's Scandinavia. I remember when we used to go to the Swedish Grand Prix, everybody stayed at a place called the High Chaparral.
Okay.
And it was like a US cavalry fort. Okay. And lots of Swedes walking around in cowboy uniforms and all that stuff. And all the Formula One people were staying there as well, all loving it. And lots of American cars everywhere. They all love big American cars.
That's true.
It was It was nice. It was fun. I used to love the Swedish Grand Prix. It's a shame we've never had a Danish Grand Prix. Karina Gruzevska from Latvia, excuse me. Which was the most memorable overtaking move of your career so far? That's a good question too.
Yeah, it is a good question. It's difficult. I think...
How many overtaking moves have you made in your entire career?
I don't know. I think it's got to be in F3, in British F3. I was always fighting against Felipe Nasr, and in Snetterton, in the first corner, in the first race. So we had 3 races in the weekend, and so in the first race I was starting P2, got off the line P2, and then there was a safety car. And when the safety car pitted, I slipstreamed Felipe down the straight in Snetterton, and he went in to the inside to block me, and I went on the outside and did him on the outside on Saturday, and then won the race. Then on Sunday, in the 3rd race, I started P2 again and did exactly the same again. So that must have been...
It's a great corner, that. It's double apex. Yeah. Do you have 2 apexes there, or just one late apex?
Yeah, you have one early.
One early, but you can really get a nice drift on with the car, I would guess, in Formula 3.
Flat, almost flat. I can't remember if it is flat, but it's close in qualifying.
Wow. And when you were at Snetterton, was the last corner that long right-hander before she came?
I raced the new one.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Okay. So you never raced on it with that long corner. What a shame. Or the bomb hole?
That's still there, yeah.
Nice in Formula 3?
Yeah, it's flat.
It's flat. When you say, it's flat, does that mean... it's not so much fun as it could be?
If it's flat, it's not really a corner.
Yeah. And I suppose you dismiss Eau Rouge the same way. But not Pouhon?
No.
Good, that's a good question. Jeffrey Vio from France. Kevin, a Danish conundrum, Carlsberg or Tuborg?
Tuborg, definitely.
Is this from experience, or is this your dad's influence, or what?
I've heard it's good.
Good. Bo Justesen from Denmark. Given that you've tried both, how does the World Series racer compare to Formula One? Best of luck in the next races, by the way. You've kind of talked about that, but let's just be a little bit more specific. Is there anywhere where a World Series car, let's take Beckett's at Silverstone, for example, if you were able to, you will be racing there. How mid-corner, how would that compare with the F1 car?
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
Just harder, because you don't have power steering and you have bigger tires in the World Series. So it's very heavy in the steering wheel, and it just seems, in a way, it seems faster, the World Series, because it's so hard and violent in a way. But because the Formula One car is so smooth and
light.
Very light, and it just seems a bit easier in all everywhere.
What about braking distances?
In the World Series, you obviously have less top speed, so you can brake sort of the same. Some places a bit later than the Formula One, but Formula One feels, you can feel that you stop better in a Formula One car. You just have more braking power. But I love the World Series car. I think it's a great car, and it really you have to push so hard to be fast in the World Series, especially on fast circuits. You really have to get your balls out and push as hard as you can.
Well, speaking of top speed, Tom Gaymore, another good friend of the show, who does the commentary on Eurosport of all the World Series, was saying that your car looked to be a little bit down in top speed at Spa, I guess in race 2 more than race 1, but I don't know if it was or not.
Yeah, I think we chose a wrong 6th gear for the second race, so I couldn't overtake. I could be overtaken, but I couldn't overtake back, so that was not so handy. But there you go.
And why was that? Based on what you thought the weather was going to be?
No, we were lacking pace in sector 1 and 3.
As you mentioned, yeah.
And sector 1 and 3 is basically just straight line.
Right.
So we were trying to find some straight line speed, but yeah, we have to look into that and see if we can find the problem.
You probably won't like this last question, Kevin. Sally Pill from the United Kingdom. If you couldn't get into Formula One, what would you do?
I'd try to find somewhere else to race. You know, I love racing. Obviously, my dream is to become a world champion in Formula One, and it is my ambition and my goal. And I believe I can do that if I work hard enough and if I do the best I can. But I love racing. I need to race. It's my drug in a way. You can say it sounds cliche, but I cannot function if I don't drive cars regularly.
And for how long have you been like this?
Always. Again, I raced since I was 2. I drove go-karts and race cars since I was 2 years old. And it's just, in the winter time is horrible for me because honestly it is the worst time of the year, obviously, but it's horrible for me. I need to race.
And that was another thing about the 80s. You could have done a lot more mileage in the 80s as well, because there was no limitation on testing really in any category back then. And
no, it's horrible. I love my sport as much as football players or tennis players do, but they get to play every day and practice every day. I get to race 9 times a year, and yeah, it's not great.
And on top of that, you have to be mentally prepared that you might actually be called on to race in a Formula One event for Vodafone, McLaren, Mercedes.
Yes. With
very little testing, or virtually no testing this year. It could be that situation. Do you try to imagine that, if that would happen, and how you would react, and how actually it would go for you?
Yeah, when I was called the third driver for McLaren, I had to imagine what actually is going to happen if I'm going to do the race. But I think if it happened, I'd just have to go for it, and I would love the challenge. It'd be a real challenge for me to go into qualifying, not having driven the car or the track would be really difficult. But I think it would excite me in a way as well. It'd be a big challenge.
And I think you'd go well, given the way it worked in Abu Dhabi and how in sync you felt with the car and with your attitude. I'm sure it would go well. Just a couple of things. We talked about fast corners. Can you try to tell me your top 5 corners?
Well, we wrote them down, didn't we?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier, so you can re-jog your memory. But Paddock Bend at Brands Hatch was...
Yes, that's so my favourite corners are all fast corners. But I think... the first time I really thought, bloody hell, this is a corner, was Paddock Hill Bend. It's just so unique with the hill that you just drop, you drop away, and in F3 it's a mega corner. You almost can do it flat. I think if it wasn't for the dip down, you could do it flat, but you just have to lift because the car goes light, and yeah, it's just a brilliant corner.
Eau Rouge at Spa.
But then I put down Eau Rouge in the wet.
You did indeed. You did.
Because Eau Rouge in the dry is so easy flat. It's not really a corner. It's something you just try to let the car go free as you can. So it's not really it's so easy to do flat. You just focus on not killing the RPMs. But in the wet it's more tricky and it becomes a real corner. So in the wet it's a fantastic corner.
Pouhon, another corner at Spa, wet or dry, I guess.
In the dry, I would say. In the wet, it's almost too slow to be too exciting. But it's in the dry, in the World Series, it's a mega corner. You turn in so hard, and you need to get your turning point so well. You need to have a clear turning point because you turn in so hard. So if you miss it by a little bit, you miss the apex by quite a lot.
What gear are you in?
6th, and you don't even lift full. It's like a half a lift and no brake. So it's so fast.
Practice for the 1985 Belgian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell had a steering wheel brake in the middle of Pouhon. in the Williams Honda FW10.
That's not great.
No, it wasn't. They did have runoff area though, but it was a big moment. Maggots at Silverstone.
Yes, Maggots and Baggots.
Yeah.
Again, really fast. You have to get it's a rhythm really. You turn in, go a bit left, then you go right, and then you go hard left again, and then you go right, and then you go left again. So the rhythm there is so important to get right, and you're braking, and you can really feel the car in these corners because it's so high speed. If you put a bit of braking, you get a bit more front end. If you release the brake, you can stabilize the car, and it's just a brilliant corner for really feeling the car.
And finally, you nominated Casino Square at Monte Carlo. I guess also the in and out, I would guess.
Yeah, because it's again, that's in Monaco. You have the walls there. It's a very sort of historic corner. But driving there is just, you come up the hill, the car lands, and then you turn in sort of thing. And
where do you like to be there? Middle of the road, left of middle, right of middle?
It depends. In the beginning of the weekend, you can come from the outside, but then as the weekend, you get more grip during the weekend, so you can go a bit tighter at the end.
I noticed in the Formula One race, some of the drivers were going down a gear as they went into that left, and then blipping it, but others, I think Vettel just stayed in the same gear going in through the left there.
Yeah, that depends what ratios you have. But yeah, Formula One is impressive there.
And then the right, down the hill?
You go one gear down again. So in the World
But do you like that bit of Casino, the
yeah,
exit?
because again, it goes sort of down a little bit like the bumper hole in Snellerton. You sort of go down at the exit. So
do you like to have a bit of oversteer there?
You naturally get that because you can sort of go up a hill.
But do you like it, is what I'm saying?
It's not the best place to have oversteer. If you can have good traction there, you get a lot of time.
But you don't just like the thrill of just the back end just doing that?
No, I like going fast. So if it requires me to go sideways, I'll do that.
True racing driver. As Gilles Villeneuve once said, though, there's got to be something wrong with racing if it's slow to be sideways.
Yeah, that's true.
Top 5 drivers. We've already said number 1 in the world of all time is, of course, Jan Magnussen.
Yes.
No question about that. The others, Ayrton Senna, you've got on the list there.
Yeah, he is obviously just the legend. And again, I can't remember when he was racing, but having seen all the his film and all the videos and on YouTube and all the stories that you hear, he was a fantastic person and a big role model for any driver, I think, or any person.
And I think he'd approve of your top 5 corners as well.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, the greatest. He's obviously the king of Formula One, having won 7 times and. Just set a new standard and a new era for Formula One drivers. What
did you think about him coming back the way he did?
I think he was underrated quite a lot. I think, I would say Nico Rosberg is underrated quite a lot. I think he's much better than what people compared to the credit he gets. He's a lot better, I think.
He's looking good alongside Lewis now, isn't he?
Yeah, and people thought that Michael was doing a bad job after his comeback, but I think he was just up against a really good driver in Nico.
Fernando Alonso?
Yeah. What he did last year was fantastic. He didn't have the car, and he just drove all the way to the last race, fighting for the championship. This year, his season in 2012 was the most impressive season I've seen from anyone.
Well, I predicted he'd actually win the championship last year before the season even started, so I feel well cheated on that one. He lost by a couple of points, but I still think if that Kimi thing hadn't happened in Japan, or of course Grosjean at Spa, but you can never, what do you do? And then of course Dennis Lind is in your top 5.
Well, you might not know Dennis.
I shouldn't laugh.
But it's Dennis is my cousin, and when I started racing, he started as well. So we were both 3 years. He was 3, I think. So I've always raced against him, and he is still racing in Denmark in the Camaro, same as my dad. And he's beating my dad sometimes. But he was really, really good, but he just didn't.
And he's won in the single-seater level as well, isn't he, in junior categories?
Yes, yeah, he did. He had a season where he did 3 races, I think. One of them was the European Championship, one of them was the Festival, and the other one was round of the British Formula 4 Championship, I think, and he won all 3. So I personally think he's a really, really good driver and a talent that wasn't, he just didn't get the chance.
Well, let's hope that he does get the chance now that he's had this exposure, and it's great that you remember him. There's so many other guys you could have included, but I think that's very, very kind of you to do that. Well, not kind, it's very appropriate. It's part of your character to do that. That's excellent, excellent. Wonderful for you to join us here, Kevin. Thanks so much. Really enjoyed chatting to you, and I just wish that World Series, GP2, all the other categories had much more exposure, because you guys are just brilliant, I think, in what you're doing, and the level of competition and the standard of driving in those series, just outstanding.
Thank you.
Very best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to seeing you in the McLaren sooner rather than later. Thanks very much, Kevin. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.
That's Kevin Magnussen, who I think we will see in Formula One sooner perhaps than a lot of you predict. This guy's definitely a star of the future. Just before we get on to our next guest, a few matters of motor racing moment. I'm sure everybody's familiar now with the furore surrounding Pirelli and that test prior to the Monaco Grand Prix, the test with Mercedes at Barcelona in a 2013 car. Well, Pirelli put out a fairly definitive statement earlier this week, basically saying that they notified everybody who needed to be notified. It wasn't up to them to decide if a 2013 car was going to be used. So the onus now kind of on Mercedes to reveal, I guess, the communication between their team and the FIA. So this story certainly has more mileage in it, no question about that. Maybe one of the results will be more testing for everybody in Formula One. Interesting to see Red Bull being fairly aggressive at the moment, saying Mercedes do have a lot to answer for. But Ferrari, by contrast, saying, well, let's do some testing in 2013 cars as well. Hopefully that might be a positive result out of all this. Congratulations to Mike Conway, great win for him in the IndyCar race in Detroit over the weekend, and also to Oliver Rowland making a good comeback after a hiccup in his career. Very talented young English driver, won the Renault 2-litre Euro Cup race at Spa, or one of the races there. So good to see Oliver winning again for Racing Steps. Two things I've got to show you here. I'm just in love with them. It's courtesy of my friend Nigel Roebuck. Gave me two amazing presents. I didn't even know this existed, and if you don't, get onto it. This is the Joe Honda Racing Pictorial series. Now, Joe Honda, a wonderful Japanese photographer at his peak in the 60s and 70s, has put together all the photographs he took in these lovely books, softcover books. This one is just Monaco 1967. Sadly, that was the day Lorenzo Bandini passed away, but some amazing photographs. And this book also Nigel gave me, couldn't resist it, Lotus 49, 1967. Notice the 67 there, not 68, not 69, this is just 67. But just at the end of the book, as a bonus, would you believe, amazing pictures of Jim Clark at Fuji in 1966 when they had an IndyCar race. I'd never seen any of these pictures, and there are lots of them in that STP Lotus. And also some wonderful pictures of Jimmy at Pau Formula 2 in 67. Apropos, excuse the pun, apropos nothing at all to do with the Lotus 49, but lots of shots from Pau as well. And there's just an astonishing series. There's other titles in this, and it's the Joe Honda thing. I'm sure if you Google it, you'll get it. There's a book on a Ferrari 330 P4, the Porsche 917, the Turbo Formula One era, Lotus 72, 1970, Lotus 72, 71 and beyond, and so on. Just wonderful detailed stuff, and I'm blown away. Thank you very much, Nigel Roebuck, for that. Right, our next guest is a rookie this year in Formula One. He did very well in GP3, dominated the championship. 2 relatively difficult years in GP2, but here he is at Sauber now, Esteban Gutierrez, doing his thing. I thought he looked very good in the wet in Australia and in Malaysia. Yeah, he made mistakes, but when he was out there driving, he looked very silky smooth and very much on top of what he was doing. And then came Barcelona. Very good tire management race. He actually set fastest lap in the Spanish Grand Prix this year. He led for a little bit. That's kind of incidental. More to the point, this guy does have a touch and a feel, and he's a very intelligent young racer too. We spoke, he was in Mexico just before the Canadian Grand Prix just a few days ago. Esteban, thanks for joining us. Tell us where you are right now.
Right now I'm in Mexico. I'm in my hometown in Monterrey. And yeah, enjoying a little bit of time with the family during the weekend especially, and now getting ready to leave for tomorrow.
And of course, you have the very professional excuse that you're getting used to the local time zone for Canada, so it's perfect.
Well, it's not it's not only an excuse, it's a reality as well. So it's definitely a good thing. It's also good to come back home a few days to visit the family. It's good for the preparation. It's part of everything. No?
Esteban, how does it feel to be coming back, having got these first few Formula One races behind you now?
Well, it's been I think it's been quite an interesting experience. All in all, I think coming back after a long time of trip. Fortunately, I was able to come here also 3 weeks ago, right after Bahrain, and visit a little bit as well. But generally, very happy. I mean, it's always important to have some time to analyze, to to go through things, to think about, and for each event to try to have an approach of improving, and this is what I have done during all the races and trying to do my best.
You have indeed been improving, and you started well, I think, in Australia in the wet. You looked very good in the wet and looked pretty confident then. Unfortunately, it didn't take it all the way through to the weekend, but that was a good little moment, I think, for you right at the start of your career, Formula One career.
Yes, I mean, it's all a process, and those kind of mistakes I've made, it's part of the experience, and I think that the most important of all of that is to really learn from them, to try to not make very often the same mistake. And definitely, I mean, since the beginning of the season, I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of progress with the team, especially with the communication, the way that I can understand, and my knowledge of all the different options and aspects of a Formula One car, and also the things that you can combine all together. It's always very important to take the time to really adapt to all the details, and that's some part which I feel very confident, very comfortable with the team. And yes, lately in the last 2 races, it's been quite a good step forward. Monaco was a bit special with the qualifying on the wet, which was not a bad thing, but in the second set it was a bit confusing what happened in qualifying. And yes, I mean, it's all an experience, and I'm trying to use every part of it to really go forward, and to keep improving.
Well, you did an excellent job in Barcelona at the Spanish Grand Prix, not only in terms of the results we saw at the end, set fastest lap, led briefly, because obviously that was related to strategy and various other things, but talking to your engineers, talking to the team, you did a very good job of what they describe as knowing how long to make the tyres last and managing the tyres. And that's a skill that you apparently seem to be picking up relatively quickly in this very difficult year in which you find yourself.
Well, right now it's a lot about the tires, or maybe all about the tires. You have to really understand very well what can you do with the tires. It's sometimes a bit difficult because it's hard to predict. It's hard to make a plan or a strategy that you can really go through it. Especially before the race, where you make a plan, and lately it has been very challenging to make a precise plan and to really follow it during the race. It's very difficult. So, this is a challenge, and from the driver's point of view, it's having this variable. It's very important to really understand the tires and to get the most out from that knowledge, because it's and the feeling as well.
Well, you did a very good job of that in that first stint in the Spanish Grand Prix. Tell us what that was like for you. Obviously, it was a little bit traffic related and where you were on the grid, but as I say, you'd seemed to do a very good job of knowing how to make that first set work well. Yes,
it's very important to have the right approach into the tires, into the warm-up, into the way you push during the race in the first 2 laps, and then during the next laps, because obviously at the beginning of the race you fight with other cars very closely, and then after 1 or 2 laps everyone settles a little bit, and then you try to make and stick to your strategy. So in this part, it's very important to have an understanding of how much to push, how much to be conservative. And yes, I mean, the good thing about Barcelona is that the pace was there, and the pace in the race, it showed that we were very strong. But we do really need to improve in qualifying, and this is something where my focus it's concentrated at the moment, because to really have a strong result in the race, of course you need to have a reasonable starting grid position. I mean, we all know that with the strategy, with the kind of tires and the characteristics we are having in the strategies, it's very variable. And even if you start on the back, you can manage with a good strategy, you can manage to finish in the points. But in a track like Monaco, or tracks where it's difficult to overtake or things like that, it's important to start Saturdays in a good with the right foot.
Esteban, what are the good qualities of the car at the moment, and what are your thoughts on Canada?
Well, I believe that our car is very strong in the high-speed corners. This is something we know. The problem that we're having is that our top speed related to our downforce, it's very, very poor. So this has been, and also related to stability of the aerodynamics. It's something we've been working a lot and trying to to improve on that side. For Montreal, it will be quite an important thing to have a good speed line straight, speed in the straight. So we try to hopefully with the wing characteristic that we have for Montreal, that will be improved on that side, and also the stability into the slow corners, which has been our weak side.
Well, let's hope so, and we look forward to that. Just talking about a few more aspects of your life in general. First of all, interesting lineup of helmets behind you there. How many helmets have you got that you still have? I don't know how many you give away in the course of your career, but how many? Is that your total collection, or have you got more in Europe?
No, I've got a little bit more in Europe. It all starts from karting on the bottom, and then it climbs up to the different categories. So yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I try to keep the same basics of the design, and obviously it's like my image,
Well, I was going to say, what is your view about helmet color design? You've just explained it, but what do you think about drivers who change completely one race to the next?
Well, I mean, everyone has its own way or approach. And it's very respectful to any driver, but I mean, on my side, I try to keep a basic concept, specifically on colors, and because from the beginning, I believe that people remember you from that. When you are driving, what you can see the colors of the car, you can see the car, and you can see the helmet of the driver, and that's how you differentiate from one driver to another. So it's definitely important to have a basic concept of the design.
Good to hear. How is Formula One now in Mexico? What is it like for you when you come home now?
Well, the interest is growing a lot, which for us is a very motivating thing. I mean, to have the support from all the people over here, our supporters, and everyone who is really probably had not been following Formula One in the previous years, but now, as a consequence of us being in Formula One, they start to follow, and more interest is building up, and it's really something that is very special for us. So now that we go to Montreal, I believe that we will have a lot more Mexicans than in other race from the beginning of the season, and then later in the year we race in Austin, which is maybe half of the Mexican Grand Prix.
It's going to be crazy. I was interested to see in Monaco that you announced a new tie-up with Velocidad, an Argentine company, promoting and building, powering, if you like, the potential new Formula One circuit in Buenos Aires. Can you tell us a bit about that and why you're involved? What's the relationship between Mexico and Argentina?
Well, there is, the relationship is more related to, I try to globalize a little bit. I mean, of course, not only because I'm Mexican, I want to have relationship with Mexican companies. Of course, it's one of the goals, but Velocidad in this case, it's a company which is, have many different aspects and all related to racing. And, it's really, I feel very grateful with the team, with them, because with Eddie Freeman, which is the owner, because they chose me as a, to really show and relate their image to myself, and this is very special to have this kind of interest. Velocidad have, as you mentioned, they are building a track in Argentina. Right now, of course, they will wait a little bit. I mean, I don't know if their plans is to bring Formula One. I suppose it definitely is. But, it's a process, and they also have a brand of clothing, and they have also a driver development program, which, they want my input into that and a little bit of advice from the driver's point of view. And I'm always happy to help on those things. It's very special for me.
Well, it's a brilliant thing to stay involved in motorsport at various levels. Do you, now that you're in Formula One, do you still keep in touch with everything that you've come through, karting, GP3? How closely do you follow those categories now? GP2, obviously.
Well, it's when I come back to Mexico, I really enjoy going karting with my same team. Even my same mechanics are still there. They're still taking care of my karts, and they're still, ready when I'm coming. So, I try to keep alive those things, because it's, at the end of the day, is the roots. It's where I found my detailed and my full passion on racing, and all those people which were involved from the beginning are, it's a very special thing to share with them. So yeah, I try to keep on every level. I try to keep contact, and all in all, to share everything with them.
Esteban, how is it for you as a rookie, a very young rookie in Formula One, when you're on the parade lap with the other drivers, you're in the driver's briefing? How do the other drivers behave towards you? And do you gravitate towards, for example, Checo or other drivers?
Well, I have a good relationship with, generally with the drivers. I try not to have any trouble with the drivers. I mean, competing is not about damaging other drivers' race. It's about competing in a fair way, and that's the most important. So I believe from that side, it's been quite good in these first few races. I've made some mistakes, like I did with Adrian, which I totally accepted. It was my mistake. It happens, and we are not perfect. And yes, when I'm sharing with them, it's the main thing is to be to not to think too much. Is at the end of the day, I am one of those 22 drivers in racing in Formula One, and I believe that everyone in there has to feel itself on the same level. I mean, it's, of course, some of them have more success than others, but and probably at the moment are in different kind of circumstances than others, but at the end we are all Formula Ones. We are there for a sport, and we represent the highest sport in motorsport. So,
well, that's good to hear, and a great attitude. Esteban, could I finish just by asking you, if you could, maybe to think about your 5 favorite corners, including kart tracks, maybe, if you like, but if I said to you your 5 best corners that what would you say?
That's interesting. I would say first one, swimming pool in Monaco.
Entrance or the exit?
Everything.
Okay.
From entrance to exit. It's Hockenheim entry to the stadium.
The right-hander.
Yes. Let me think a little bit through. I have to go through a little bit. I enjoy. I think the two Lesmos in Monza, very nice. And also Ascari, very, very nice corner. Ascari in Monza, I think it's one very special. Chicanes.
One more.
I would say Eau Rouge in the wet.
Very nice. A good selection. Esteban, thank you so much. Good to talk to you. Look forward to seeing you in Canada, and very best of luck this weekend for you and everybody in the Sauber team.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
I appreciate
it. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Esteban Gutierrez. It'll be very interesting to see how the Sauber team gets on in Canada this weekend. All the best to him. Well, that's all we have time for on episode 13 of The Racer's Edge in association with F1 Racing Magazine, although I must announce the winner of the Kevin Magnussen question. Kevin spent quite a lot of time looking at all the questions. I thought he was going to go for the one involving Le Mans. Would he like to do Le Mans with his dad? But he didn't. He actually chose Paul Osborne's from New Zealand. Paul said, if you had to choose, which era would you like to have raced in? I should say here that others also asked similarly worded questions, but this is sadly something we have to choose at random, and that's the one we found first. So Paul, congratulations, you've won yourself a Casio watch, and that'll be arriving post-haste in New Zealand. We'll be getting in touch with you. Thanks again for joining us, particularly everybody in the F1 Racing Global fan community. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's how you can be kept up to date. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook as well. And beyond that, we now have a sensational download system for the show, courtesy of Amazon. You can find us in the library of iTunes. Just search for us in iTunes, The Racer's Edge. And I'm reliably informed that last week, well, I know it was reliable because it was our production producer, Rish, who tried the download, the video download, and it took just over a minute for a 1 hour, 15-minute video show. Amazing. So that's on iTunes. You can now download The Racer's Edge to your heart's content. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for joining us.